Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon. Good to see you guys. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I know a lot of people are getting ready to go home. Well, on the East Coast, at least. It's almost 5 for those that get off work at 5 o'clock. Good to see you guys on. Just wanted to jump on for a couple of minutes. I haven't been on in a while. My husband did Periscope my teaching, which was really short because we did a lot of ministry in Atlanta. So I wanted to jump on and just kind of talk about this topic a little bit because people have asked me. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment on the hair. People have asked me about spiritual parents. You guys have asked questions about healthy churches. There's a lot going on. It was good seeing in Atlanta as well. There's a lot going on concerning coaches and mentors and things like that. So I wanted to share a little bit about that and take some of your questions. So I think that it's important to understand that at different parts of your life, you're going to need different people. You're going to need different things to help you become who God has called you to become and to help you be propelled into the areas that God has called you to be propelled into. So I'm just going to hit kind of spiritual parents, pastors, and the mentoring piece. And I'll throw in there coaches because it's a big buzzword right now. So what that looks like. So I'll start with the basic pastor, right? I do believe that every person should be in a community. Every person should have accountability. Now, one of the things that really discourages people or makes life hard for people when it comes to pastors is they think that their pastor or the person who's pastoring their church has to be the only person that they can interact with and talk with in order to grow. But the truth is, if it's a healthy church, there should be other leaders and elders and people that end up being mentors in the church that you can connect with and can help you develop and can help you grow. So you should be in a place where there's a community and there's a place where you're growing. But a lot of you guys get disappointed or you've had expectations where you thought maybe the pastors of the church should be chasing after you or tending to just your needs, when a healthy church should set up structures in which other people should connect. But the job of a pastor, and if we're going to look at it within the fivefold sense, is to provide teaching, is to provide counsel, and is to provide care. And the other thing about pastors is they're not always, not every pastor is a teaching pastor, meaning you could have pastors in your church that are more over the care. Like we have a connect pastor. She's amazing at connecting with the members and caring for the members, but she doesn't necessarily teach every Sunday. But if somebody really connects to her and says, hey, I want you to mentor me, which I'll hit in a minute, then that person is also helping pastor them. In some churches, you have executive pastors. In some churches, you have women's pastors. In some churches, you have different kinds. And so it's really important. And the reason I said some people expect pastors to chase them down is because I deal with a lot of you guys in my office where you feel like we had these certain expectations and I thought my pastor never called. My pastor didn't know what was going on with me. Nobody picked up the phone to check on me. Well, if you don't talk, nobody's going to by osmosis know what's going on. Even in a prophetic church, we're always telling people, even though a lot of us are prophetic at our church, if you're having issues, if you're having problems, if you don't open up your mouth and go to somebody and talk to them about it, then you cannot expect those problems to be solved. And so sometimes what we see in terms of church hurt and church issues is that we have expectations that are not real. They're not realistic expectations. So pastors are there for, they can be for a season and they can be for a lifetime. I don't believe that all our church members, we want them to be with us forever. We want you to make this our church home, but they're going to grow. They're going to move to different cities. God is going to, maneuver them in different ways. So you could have someone who pastors you for a lifetime. You could have someone who pastors you for a season. Now, one of the things that is connected to that is the spiritual parents bit, right? So ideally, your pastor should be your spiritual parents, ideally. And what that means is that you have access to that person, and they're helping hold you accountable, they're helping you grow, and so on and so forth, right? But if you're in a big church or in a mega church and you don't have access to those pastors, your spiritual parents can be leaders in the church. They can also be leaders outside of the church. But this is the thing. Before we planted a church, I've been a spiritual mother for years. As a matter of fact, I don't know why it didn't cross my mind, but this November 10th, for our Pioneer Girls, this is my 10th women's conference that I'm holding. And we launched our ministry 10 years ago. So I have been a mama to people for over 10 years, even over 10 years. And so I've been doing that for a really long time, and I did not have a church. And so what I would tell the people that I was spiritual mothering was, hey, you know what? I want you to be in a community. I want you to be part of a church. I understand, and this is some of the things about a spiritual parent. They should understand who you are, where you're going. They should understand the vision over your life. They should be able to hold you accountable. They should be able to speak into you. They should be able to correct you, right? I understand all these things about you, and this is what I was telling my spiritual children, but I need you to be within a church context. And if within that church context, I say something different than what your pastors are requiring, and you are in a serving position, you're going to have to default to your pastors. That's why I was very adamant that those that I was spiritual mothering, that I am spiritual mothering, are in healthy churches. Because a lot of times when you're in a healthy church and you have a spiritual mother or a spiritual father that is outside of that church, because we all have the same Holy Spirit, what we are advising you should be in line. But if you're under a church and your spiritual mother or father is in a different place, then the person that you're under in that church ultimately holds the final decision. So I would tell my daughters, I would tell my sons, like, hey, this is what I would do. This is how I would advise you to walk. And if they're saying something else and you've submitted yourself in that church and leadership, they have the ultimate say. So it is possible to have pastors that are not necessarily your spiritual parents, but they're the ones who are feeding you, and they're the ones that you are under care. But the idea of a spiritual mother or father is that this person, you have access to them. I mean, it would be foreign to, for my children to say that's my mom, but they never talk to me. To say that's my mom, but I never feed them. That's my mom, and I can't hold them accountable. So you can't say T.D. Jakes is my spiritual father, and you've never met T.D. Jakes. What he is a mentor. Okay, and I'm going to hit that in a minute. You can't say, I'm your spiritual mother, and I've never met you. I don't even know your story. I don't know what your life is like. I'm a mentor, or I'm a teacher to your life. And so one of the things that differentiates even just a pastor from a spiritual mother or father is that these people understand who you are, and you have access to them. Access. That is the key word. They know your issues, and they're able to hold you accountable, and they're able to pray for you, and they're able to develop you. Now, this is the other thing about submitting to pastors or submitting to spiritual parents. You're saying that I believe that you hear God and that you have my best interest at heart. When people join our church and we bring them on as leaders, we're saying you believe that we hear God for your life, not that we're not the ultimate voice, we're not the only voice, but that the fact that you have joined and submitted or have asked me to be a spiritual mother to you or father, you're saying that you trust my decision. And part of that is you're going to have to learn how to listen because people want spiritual mothers and fathers, but then they don't want to hear anything they say, or as long as they're giving them prophetic words and they're giving them really cute, little instructions is fine. But until it's something difficult, then you get offended, then you get mad, then you leave. But that wouldn't be a spiritual mother or father. Spiritual mothering or fathering is about parenting, is about covenant. It's a covenant decision. That's why I tell people, I've had people mad at me because they started calling me mom, but we never had a discussion that I was their mom. So some people, because if you come to one of our conferences or different things, you hear people calling me Mama Faith or at church. But I've had a discussion with these people and they've said, hey, I believe that you carry something. There's something in your DNA that I need in my life. And I'm submitting who I am to you, except as well as my husband, Papa Soso. We're submitting ourselves to you and we consider you as a mother or father. Then I can tell you, yes, I believe that that's what the Lord's telling me. Most of the time, spiritual parents already know this. Like I can discern who are supposed to be my spiritual children from a mile away. Whether they become my spiritual children or not, it's really up to them, because I'm not the kind of person who will chase after people and say, you're my spiritual child. You're my spiritual child. Come sit under me. Come submit under me. That's, to me, it's really not the biblical model. There are times when you can help guide people and stir people and say, hey, I feel like this is what our relationship is developing into. But if you're around people and they're constantly chasing you and they're calling you son, daughter at every minute, usually that's a sign that they have an identity issue, that they're looking for sons and daughters to give them identity or to give them purpose. And you have to watch out for those, because it can become very controlling very easily. A lot of times when people struggle with rejection, when they struggle with a lack of identity, when they struggle with feeling like they don't belong, they join churches, or they find the prophetess at the mall, and all of a sudden that's their mom. They find the apostle with the shiny shoes down the street, and all of a sudden that's their father. But they're as dysfunctional as you are. One of the things that you need to look for when you're looking at spiritual parents is, have they walked in steps that I want to walk in? Have they developed and done things that I could learn from them? It's not just, oh, they have my gift, but am I willing to even suffer with them? Because and this is the same thing with churches. When you become part of a vision, when you submit under leadership, you're saying, hey, I'm willing to take some of the hardships that are going to come with some of the blessings. Because when something is growing or flourishing or has potential, people love to attach to it, but you're not only attaching to it because of the blessings, you're also saying, hey, I'm in this. And so some of us have a hard time with relationships with leaders and with pastors because we are afraid of being hurt, or we are afraid of being taken advantage of, or we are afraid of being abused. And so that's an area that you need to heal. You need to heal in, and you need to figure out, okay, God, this means that I also don't trust you, because that means that every person that you bring to me, I have the same narrative about them. So whether they're good, I still don't trust them. Whether they're bad, I still don't trust them. That means that there's some healing. Okay. So when it comes to spiritual parenting, I also have said no. I've had people who came up and said, hey, I believe that you're my mom. And I said, I haven't heard that from the Lord. I really feel like this is what's really going on in your life, and you're saying that because of XYZ. I don't parent everybody. I'm not wired to parent everybody. My kids, my spiritual children, are unique to me, and your spiritual parents are going to be unique to you. I cannot answer any questions right now. Ask me the questions after I'm done, guys. Okay? So one of the things that you have to understand is that sometimes the Lord may show you somebody, and that person may not have the capacity for you, or may not be wired for you, and that doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you. A lot of people struggle with rejection. Just because someone doesn't receive you doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It just means they don't have the capacity for you. It also doesn't mean anything is wrong with them. It means that they're not just wired to deal with who you are. And so it's really important for that. Now, people ask me, should you have a pastor? Should you have a spiritual parent? I always tell, if you're going to just do your own thing, be a wandering cactus in the desert, fine. But the moment you start leading other people, the moment you start overseeing, counseling, you have a group of people that you're doing Bible study with, you need to be accountable. It is dangerous for somebody to have a ministry or to be leading people and they have no one that they are accountable to. No one can correct them. No one can speak to them. So if you want to do your own thing and you're not leading anybody, go for it. But if you're going to start leading people and you're going to begin to develop something, make sure that you have somebody that you can call to. This is the other thing I learned. Because of my gifting, because of what I'm called to do, my spiritual leaders weren't necessarily in my city. So I've always been part of a church. I believe in the church. I love the church. So I always was part of a church. But because I was an itinerant minister and I traveled a lot, when I joined the church, I would let them know, you know what, I'm on the road a lot. You may see me some Sundays, you may not. This is what I'm doing. This is my ministry. And I would also let them know I'm really connected to Pastor so-and-so in this city. He has been serving as my spiritual father for these years. So there was clarity in that. But I didn't go into that church wanting to serve and wanting to do things, yet wanting to be submitted to a different person in a different city. No, you can't do that. You cannot have a spiritual leader or a spiritual father in another city, and then you get into a house and you want to serve and do all those things and you don't want to submit under that leadership. The moment you want to serve and you want to build in a house, those people become your spiritual leadership, and they have the first say-so over, decisions and things that are going on in your life. So I think that's that's important to understand as well. So that was one of the things that was very clear for us. And even when we got married, that our spiritual parents and our fathers were often in other cities. This is the other thing. I would drive to my spiritual father's house, especially when I was being developed, early training, development. I would drive every month. I lived 4 hours away, but I would drive to them. I would learn from them. I would cultivate from them. I did not expect them to be chasing after me. And this is really important too, because I'll have people say, hey, even our mentorship program, I want to be part of this. I want to do this. And then we don't hear from you, right? We'll check on you 1 or 2, 3 times, and then that's it. It's the same thing at our church. If we have someone who's missing, the Connect pastor will call them. One of us may text them, or their elder may text them. We'll check on you 2 or 3 times. After that, it is your decision. And this is important to know. Your development is your decision. Who you become in God is up to you. How far you go in God is up to you. No man can stop you, and no man can hinder what God wants to do in your life if you're devoted. And most of us that are leaders, that are apostolic in nature, that are builders, when we see somebody with potential and we see them going the extra mile, we grab hold of them and we give them everything that we have. But if somebody's in and out and they say they're going to do something, then they don't do it, they don't show up to half of the stuff, we're not going to waste our time. And that's me, the apostle, talking. We don't have a lot of time to waste. And so you're going to find that as well. If you need a lot of babysitting, if you need a lot of, just really cuddling, then you don't necessarily need, you need a pastor. You don't need an apostle. You need a pastor who's going to cuddle you and love you and just be gentle with you. But if you want to be trained, if you want to be built, if you want to be released, you need someone who's apostolic. You need an apostle who can do that. So those are some of the things. Now, mentoring. This is a big thing. When a person's a mentor, and we're doing our mentoring certification program right now, we're finishing up our second cohort. People have been emailing for the next course that's going to be in the spring. Mentoring is you identify somebody who has something in them that you need. And the job of a mentor is to pour what I have in me into you. And so the reason I'm actually doing this Periscope is to really encourage those that are joining us for our Pioneer Girls Conference, November 10th to the 12th, to sign up for the VIP session. That VIP session is November 10th from 1 to 5. It's a mentoring session. So what I'm going to do during this session is I'm going to take the highlights out of my life, out of being a woman, out of being a leader, out of being a business person, out of being a wife, and I'm going to pour into you, and then you're going to pull out of me what you need. That's what mentoring does. Mentoring is not just you coming into a meeting and the person, feeds you. No, you say, this is what I need. What about this? How do I do this? How do I grow in this? So if you're coming to Pioneer Girls, if you weren't coming, but you've never been mentored before, this 4 hours can change your life. 4 hours can change your life. And we've also added a prophetic presbytery where I'm going to take 4 people and they're going to go around and they're going to prophesy to everybody that's part of that VIP. So I want to make sure that you register, and you can register for that at Legacy Center Church. So that's what mentoring is. Coaching is when you have a specific issue, conflict, trait, skill that you bring to somebody who has an expertise in that area, and they can sharpen, correct, develop that particular thing. So coaching, and I'm giving you guys some of the little things that people are learning in our certification program. Coaches, our job is to take what you bring us and sharpen it, clarify it, develop it, and launch it into purpose. Our Pioneer Girls Conference is this November 10th through the 12th. Mentors, our job is to pour who we are into you. Mentoring is very relational. We can grow, it can grow into a spiritual mothering, fathering relationship. There's no time limits. Coaching is very specific. Coaching is very targeted. Coaching is dealing with a specific skill. So if you come to me with your business and say, I'm stuck, I'm going to evaluate your business, and then we're going to assess it, and we're going to give you skills and tools to go forward. If you come to me with your marriage and say, this is where we're having the conflict, we're going to deal with the conflict, we're going to help provide solutions and move you forward. So you need to be able to assess your own life and say, what do I need? Do I need a pastor? Do I need to be somewhere where I can be developed, where I can be counseled, where I can be taught, where I can just grow in the Word of God? Or am I at the place where I'm healed and I have the Word of God in me, but I need to be be sharpened. I need to be given access to grow and to serve and to learn. Do I need someone to hold me accountable, to be a spiritual mother or father to correct me? You need to be able to know what you need so that you can connect to the right people. You need to know what you need so you can connect to the right people. A lot of times we connect to people, but they don't really have what we need. Therefore, we waste a lot of money or we waste a lot of time. So I wanted to just give you guys those quick differences and just really encourage you guys to register, the women, especially for the Pioneer Girls Conference that's coming up November 10th through the 12th. We have Wife Camp, which is a webinar October 12th, and it's also live at our church. October 28th, you can register for that. What else? The Husband Huddle, November 4th. And then this is the big one, our marriage retreat. I'm only taking 25 couples. People have been asking us to do a marriage retreat forever. We are launching it tonight. We released the flyer, but we had to correct the date. So you can register for a marriage retreat. It's going to be February 16th through the 18th, 2 days in Myrtle Beach. Beautiful house. Myself and some other teachers. We're going to get your marriage in shape. So you can register for that at AskDrFaith.com. All right. Give me your questions. I'll take your questions on spiritual parenting, mentoring, coaching. Is VIP still available for the Pioneer Girls Conference? Yes. We're down. I think we have 20 more spots. So you register at legacycenterchurch.org. I keep dreaming about a woman of God teaching me and sometimes brushing my hair. What do I do? Find that woman of God. If you know who they are, go ask them if they could teach you. Hair represents wisdom. Can you have more than one spiritual mother and father? Yes. Scripture says you have many teachers, but not many fathers. And so there are seasons of development. Some people, you may stay with them for 16 years and the Lord shifts you. You could also have a spiritual mom and you could have a spiritual dad that are in two different ministries, but the pour and advise you in two different areas. So it depends on the seasons. How do I know when my season is over with my spiritual mother? It's the same thing with the church. You're not growing anymore. You don't feel like you have the accountability. There's no level of stretching. You feel like you're going in one direction and they're going in another direction. When I switched pastors, it was because I had reached the capacity in them. So I've had one pastor, he's a prophet, but he was only called to the U.S. and I'm called to the nations. So there was not much more that he could teach me. Another one, I'm called to government and business. They're not really called into that. So I learned what I needed to learn. Deliverance. I was there with them 8 years, 10 years. I learned that, and then it was time to go to where I had someone had the capacity for me. So I believe in longevity. I believe that you should have some things in your life that last a long time. So I was sharing earlier that our women's conference, this is our 10th year. I don't believe that people should be switching spiritual parents every 2 years, every 3 years. However, I believe that you can every several years after you have reached your potential. Now, sometimes some of you guys connect with people who are not healthy themselves and it ends up being abusive and you have to run. But if they've been healthy and you've reached and gotten everything out of them, I ended well with every one of my pastors. I can call them and we can talk to this day. So what do you do if your spiritual mother has Jezebel characteristics? Run. And I'm pretty sure she told you she was your spiritual mother before you told her. That is one clue that that's a Jezebel. They're controlling. And men are Jezebels too. They're going to start calling you daughter, son, really, really early before you sent it. But you don't have to submit to that until you really feel the peace of the Lord in that direction. All right, I missed some other questions. I'll take a couple more. Enjoyed you so much at Dominion Conference. Bless you. I didn't teach much, but I'll be back for my own event. So can you have more than one mentor? It's the same thing as spiritual blessing as parents. I don't advise having a bunch of mentors at once. One per season, one parent per season. But if you are being mentored in business, fine. If you're being mentored in the prophetic, fine. If those two don't overlap, then you just have mentors in those areas. How do I approach the woman I need something from? You say, hey, I really love what's on your life, what you're carrying. I honor it. Do you have the time? Do you have the time to be able to pour into me? The other way that you can get poured into by people who don't have the time, like myself, is you serve. You find a way that you can serve in their ministry or in what they're building. And what that does is it gives you access to them more than people who are not serving. So serving is a really, really good way to connect with people that you want to glean from. And remember this, mentoring and spiritual parenting is not always about phone conversations or coffees. It's about watching how they live their life, watching how they do what they do and growing from there. If they live out of town, I mean, I would have to get a better idea of who they are. But if they travel and you're able to travel with them, do it. Is it okay to have a mentor and a pastor? Yes, because mentors are in specific areas. Mentors are in specific areas. Pastors are in charge of your spiritual development and your spiritual destiny. Mentors should be growing you in a specific area. Sorry, all this sunlight is now coming in. Sorry, I missed your question that you put it up. So if you can't get where they are, then you could be mentored. I have lots of you guys are mentored by me via Periscope or YouTube. All my mentors never met me, but I grew from them. What if your pastor doesn't know your calling? Does it mean he is not the pastor for you? No, you may need to go to your pastor and talk to him and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I sense. What do you think? And you need, how do you know he doesn't know? Have you had a conversation? So you want to make sure that you're not making assumptions. Go and talk to them and see where they are. And if they don't have the tools to develop you, then you can go from there. Have you ever been in a position God tell you to quit a job, and how did you go about it? Yeah, before I launched out into my own business, the Lord was telling me to work for him, and I eventually just obeyed. How to develop an ear to hear the Holy Spirit? I'll answer that another day. I want to talk about mentoring, coaching spiritual parents. Sorry, I missed your last question. Can you have a spiritual mom in a different state? Yes, all my spiritual parents were in different states, but I talked to them every week. I traveled with them. I went to them. I visited them. I learned from them. So they don't have to be in the same state. I sacrificed a lot to actually learn and glean from them. Okay? I have had a mentor that was with me for 3 days. The Lord said, go with this woman. She had been an ambassador and a prophetic voice in Israel. Go with her, learn from her what it means to sit with kings, to be developed. And I was with her for 3 days. I asked her every question I could, and she left a mark in my life, and that was it, 3 days. So all your mentors are not necessarily going to be there forever, but you need to be able to identify the open window where God is bringing you certain people that can invest in you, okay? And I'm giving you guys a lot of the information I'm going to give in the VIP session at the Pioneer Growth Conference. But I'll take 1 or 2 more questions, and then I got to go cook dinner for my family. So any other questions? Spiritual parenting, coaching. How should I start the process of seeking out a spiritual mother? First, you want to pray. You want to get a little bit of clarity of what you need, and then you want to begin to look around. Begin to look around and say, who could possibly be it? And just go for it. Ask them. Any other questions? The last one. You welcome. I love providing you guys with information. Go register for the courses. Go register for the marriage retreat. What if your mentor is temperamental and emotional? If they're unhealthy, you're going to be unhealthy. How do I find time with family? I'll answer that another day when I do a Periscope on balancing it all. We're going to talk a lot about that in Wife Camp for the women, and the husbands are going to touch on it. But there is a way to balance your life, and one of the big ways is understanding your seasons. When you understand the season that you're in, then you know what's more important. And balance is learning what's more important in what season. Coaching and mentorship closely related. How do I know the difference? All right, I already gave you guys the tips. One of the ways is that coaching is time specific, perfecting a specific area, where mentoring is the person pouring themselves out to you. But I teach a lot of that in our certification program. So if you feel like you're a mentor or a coach, but you've never been certified, begin to save your money so you can register in the spring. Have you been sent to spiritual parents to help them? I've been sent to pastors and churches to help them. Yes. And the Lord was teaching me how to serve, how to submit, how to walk lowly, even when I knew more than they knew, and just how to love. Does your mentor have to be prophetic if you are? No, because your mentor, I have business mentors. I have, I could have a mentor who's just an amazing mom and a wife, and I just want to be good at that. So I ask her to mentor me in that area. I could have a mentor who is an amazing worship leader, and I want to grow as a worship leader. So I ask them to pour into that area. So they don't have to be all like you. Mentoring is specific in a particular area that you need pouring into. All right. Bless you guys. Bless you. When do you need a coach as opposed to a mentor? It depends on your issue. It depends on what's going on with your life. All right.